Why are luxury brands so confusing? You see, while most brands try to convince you to buy, luxury brands actually do the opposite. They reject you. You see, so many brands limit their products, charge outrageous prices for them, and yet they're the most desirable businesses in the world. These brands have spent millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to understand the basic psychological principles that actually transform a human from a normal consumer to an obsessed consumer. But what are these secrets and how do they do it? I've always been fascinated by how Chanel, Rolex, Patek Philippe, all of these big brands that we all hear about, how can they maintain such a pristine reputation while still using really under-the-table tactics to literally brainwash their customers? How they can keep on selling and selling and selling without even focusing on price, without focusing on features, without focusing on value? How can they maintain such a huge grip on the market while other brands get crushed by them? Why do they show you almost nothing but make you want everything? In this video, I'm going to break down the entire luxury branding, and I'm also going to be breaking down some of the most successful luxury ad campaigns ever created to show you exactly how it's applied in practical terms. This video will show you how to use these same principles to position your brand as a luxury actor in your own market, but also how to become a category of one. Let's get straight into it. You've probably seen or touched a luxury product in the past, and you may have noticed something very surprising. When you have it in hand, it's actually a normal product. Maybe you were expecting something different. You were expecting something far greater and far better. And that's because the perception of luxury has very little to do with the product itself, and almost everything to do with how the story is told in parallel. Brands like Hermès, Patek Philippe, Rolex, Chanel have spent decades and hundreds of millions of dollars to mystify their brand. They take simple objects and wrap them in an aura of prestige, unattainability, and privilege. And it's these principles, not just the craftsmanship, that make luxury brands feel luxury no matter the industry you're in. And these principles are timeless. And while there are many nuances in the principles that are used, and a few brands apply it in a different flavor, you've got other brands that do it in a different way, it all revolves around selling a feeling. How do you sell something to someone that doesn't need anything? And that is the question that every brand that aspires to become a luxury brand must answer. And to understand the answer, we first must understand what need a luxury product actually fills. What do people really gain by purchasing a luxury product? And according to classic value theory, there are 4 product categories. At the bottom of the pyramid, you find low-cost products. And these are the most affordable options on the market. The value lies in them being the cheapest option. They're designed to be available to everyone at the lowest price and usually the lowest quality. Think about Walmart and dollar stores. Next in line, we have commodities. And these products offer the best value for money. They're not the cheapest and they're not the best quality. They're somewhere in the middle. But they represent a fair exchange between performance and price. And then after that, you've got premium products. And these are often the best options on the market because they offer the best quality and people are often open to paying a little bit extra to get that big boost in quality. Think about brands like Mercedes, think about brands like BMW. Like, these are brands that offer such a boost in quality for a little bit of extra money. And so typically these brands position themselves as the premium options in the market. And finally, we have luxury products. And funny enough, luxury is the only category here that fundamentally breaks the relationship between value and price. For the first time, the equation actually inverts. And let me explain what I mean. In every other category, the price increases relative to its functional value. And so essentially, once you have a price that goes up, your expectation of quality goes up. And as you pay more, the returns start to diminish. But luxury brands understand something slightly different. They're not selling you functionality. They understand that affluent customers may have problems, but those aren't money problems. Most of their practical needs are already solved. And when there's nothing left to fix, something far more important takes over, and that's emotions. You see, as individuals move higher up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they stop buying to survive or optimize. They start buying products to feel. They want to feel respect. They want to feel admiration. They want to feel desire. They want to feel engagement. And they start wanting to connect to something that's bigger than themselves. Luxury brands know this. And that's why the value of a luxury product lies primarily in one thing, and that's price itself. You see, the value you gain from purchasing a luxury product isn't better functionality, it's the social signal. It's the recognition of having the means in the first place to purchase that product. A luxury product speaks before you do. It actually communicates your status, your taste, and your position in the social hierarchy. And this is why, paradoxically, the more expensive a luxury product is, the more desirable it becomes. And so, in other terms, if you had to summarize it in one sentence, in luxury, value is derived from exclusion. Why can a luxury brand survive in a big recession or a big economic collapse? Or why, despite scandal after scandal, luxury brands being exposed by Chinese suppliers of them manufacturing products that cost $50, $40, and them selling them at $4,000, $5,000, despite those scandals, these products remain desirable and people still line up to buy them. Because the fewer people can afford it, the more valuable and expensive it becomes, and it's all about perception. But then, as marketers and potentially brand owners, the question becomes, how do these brands sell these emotions? How can they perpetually convince their customers and persuade them to buy these expensive products? Now, take a look at these two pictures. What can you see? It's well known that during high-end fashion runways, models look super serious. The question is why? We would all think essentially that the more a person smiles or is inviting in terms of facial structure, the more inviting the product would be for the people that are buying it, that people would feel welcomed by the brand. But what if luxury brands didn't want to make you feel welcomed? What if instead you, as the consumer, needed to prove yourself to the brand to actually be worthy of buying? This principle is called distance, where if you artificially create some kind of distance between you and the customer, you position your brand as aspirational. When they use muted colors, shapes, and contrasts to create this separation between the brand and the people. And that instantly signals elevation. You see, where mass brands want to feel relatable, they want to feel nice, they want to feel comfortable, luxury brands do the opposite. They want to feel out of reach. And this distance, it essentially creates tension. And tension creates desire. Luxury advertising, it rarely explains itself. It doesn't try to list features. It doesn't justify price. Instead, it assumes interest. And that assumption alone filters the audience, making the brand feel selective and elevated. Hermès is one of the clearest examples in action. They rarely advertise their products. In most of their ad campaigns, their products are not even the focal point of the ad itself. Instead, you see abstract compositions, surreal videos, and quite frankly, visuals that don't really make any sense. They feel closer to art than advertising. But that's because art creates emotion. It invites the customer or the viewer to live an experience. And this controlled distance allows Hermès to communicate status without ever saying a word. But while distance creates desire, it doesn't create emotional attachment. Not only that, but also to make the person want to cross that distance. And so that's why luxury advertising must speak to people's identities. So, like I said, distance, it creates desire, but identity makes people care. When someone is buying a luxury product, they're not making a rational purchase. They're making a statement about who they are, but more importantly, about who they want to be. That's why you see a lot of brands position their products as a mirror. Owning it says something about you. It communicates taste, values, ambition, and belonging. And it places you at the center of a very, very specific social group. Rolex understands this better than any brand today. In 1905, Hans Wilsdorf had a problem. The world thought wristwatches were a joke. Men actually called them wristlets and thought they were feminine, fragile, and inaccurate. Wilsdorf knew he had an amazing product, but he had no identity tied to it. He needed to prove that Rolex was a brand for the powerful, it was a brand for the bravest men on earth. He didn't use traditional ads. To prove his watch was solid, he didn't just say it was waterproof. He found Mercedes Gleitz, a woman swimming the English Channel. The legend says he hung a Rolex oyster around her neck, and after 10 hours in the freezing water, the watch was still ticking. And he bought the front page of the Daily Mail to tell the story. So he then woke up one morning and just decided to own the top of the world. He equipped Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay with Rolex watches for their first ever climb of Mount Everest. When they succeeded, Rolex ran ads immediately. They didn't sell the metal, they sold the spirit of the explorer. And this is where the explorer model is born. By the 50s, the brand had grown exponentially, but Wilsdorf wasn't content. He wanted to make history. So he gifted the 150,000 gold Rolex to a certain General Eisenhower. And when Eisenhower became president and appeared on the cover of Life magazine, the Rolex was on his wrist. Rolex then decided to run the president campaign, featuring a hand holding a red nuclear hotline phone. And the text on the ad simply stated, "Great leaders of the world continue to rely on Rolex." So by the time Wilsdorf was done, he had successfully shifted his watches from being a fragile tool to being a status symbol. He built a mirror where the most successful people in the world saw themselves. And today, you see it, Rolex doesn't have to explain anything their watches do. And because of these Wilsdorf stories, every single person on earth today knows what a Rolex signifies. In short, how do you apply these principles to your own brand? First, sell emotion, not functionality. Luxury brands don't win by explaining what their products do. They win by attaching a feeling to the purchase. You see it with Rolex, it didn't sell timekeeping. They sold confidence, ambition, and achievement. And your brand should do the same. Ask yourself the question, what does my customer feel when they purchase my product? That emotional shift is your real value. Second, try to create what we call controlled distance. Luxury brands couldn't care less about feeling understood or being accepted. They limit access, avoid over-explaining, and let curiosity do the work. Hermès doesn't convince you to want their products. It assumes interest, and it lets desire build through restraint. For your brand, this means having clarity in who it is for and the confidence of letting people that aren't a good fit just walk away. Third, signal identity. Rolex positioned its watches on the wrists of presidents, champions, explorers. So wearing one simply stated that fact to other people. Your brand should clearly signal who it's for and what kind of person chooses it. If you take anything from this video, let it be this. Selling emotion is what gives a product meaning. Distance is what makes it desirable. And identity is what makes people choose it. When all three work together, the right customers flood your stores without ever needing to be convinced. So ask yourself, what emotion am I selling? Who is my brand meant to be distant from? And who is it meant to reflect? Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.